Clinton. This is the open secret that nobody wants to talk about, that Reuters does not want to talk about. But I wanted to get the guy on today that's been talking about it for quite some time, Lee Stranahan. Lee's been a contributing editor and reporter for two of the top news sites in the world, the liberal Huffington Post and conservative Breitbart News. He now runs citizenjournalismschool.com, and thank you for joining us, Lee Stranahan.
And David, I got to point out, let's give you credit, too. You and I have talked about this Ukraine story.
Yes.
Weeks before Sean Hannity brought it up. And by the way, God bless Sean Hannity for bringing it up.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm glad it's getting traction. It needs to. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Now, I will say this. The mistake that Hannity's making and that other people have made, Laura Ingraham in the Daily Caller, this has nothing to do with the Donald Trump meeting with the Russian lawyers story. You and I were talking about it here on InfoWars well before that was even known.
That's right.
So I just want people to separate it out, because this is not a story about like, oh, well, it's okay if we did this because they did that kind of calling out hypocrisy thing. Mm-hmm. This is a story about admitted interference in the 2016 election by the Ukrainian government through a DNC operative with the unfortunate name of Alexandra Chalupa. Now, I say unfortunate because of Taco Bell, obviously. But
I like chalupas.
But here's the thing: it works.
She made a run
really
for the border, yeah.
For us, because in a story that you point out correctly, the mainstream media has been ignoring. It's nice to have a name that's easy to remember, right? Will Hillary Clinton drop the chalupa, for instance, as a headline I predict coming, and it helps because here's another name that's less easy to remember: Leschenko. Okay. Sergei Leschenko. Sergei Leschenko is really important here. Sergei Leschenko is a former journalist in the Ukraine who's now a member of parliament, okay? By the way, if you look up Leschenko on Twitter, he's very well known in the Ukraine. He's got about 350,000 followers on Twitter, that's significant, right? And so he's very well known there. Leschenko has admitted that Ukraine was interfering in the election. And by the way, he's one of the people who was involved. He said, we were so concerned about, there he is, he's a very attractive young man. He's tall as well. But Sergei Leschenko is key to understanding this, as is Alexandra Chalupa. Now, there's two things that happened on this in the past 24 hours, David, that are significant. Number one, this morning, Donald Trump tweeted about it. Mm-hmm. And he said that Jeff Sessions should be investigating what's going on. Now, I've been urging people to call the White House and call their congressman and urge an investigation for weeks now. So this is significant. But the other thing that happened is last night, Chuck Grassley brought up something about Alexandra Chalupa, and he quotes Leschenko in that. And I would advise, there's a great writer over at Daily Caller, Chuck Ross. Chuck's a great investigative journalist. He's one of those guys, David, you know how this goes. Sometimes you read stories and you just notice the same journalist is on them, and you go, well, that's right, yeah. That dude or dudette is pretty good, right?
Like
Chuck's
Sarah
one
Carter,
of those guys.
yeah, exactly.
And so he has a piece about it last night in the Daily Caller, but this is significant. I urge everybody to read what Chuck Grassley posted that's linked in that story.
And of course, Chuck Grassley has also been pointing out the connections with Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS and all these other, and the connections to the FBI, asking questions of Director Comey when he was still director that were completely ignored. So why are you working with these people to try to come after Donald Trump when they're putting out false information? Yes.
Well, let's take this to a 50,000-foot level for a second, because I really want people to understand why this story is so significant. In fact, I'm going to argue, David, that this is the most important story in the world right now. It is the most important buried story in the world, is the story of the DNC's collusion with the government of the Ukraine. And the reason I say that, David, is that if you looked at the media in the past 6 months, you'd think the biggest story was Trump-Russia, right? That's what if you consumed establishment media, You'd believe that's the biggest story, right? But as you point out on InfoWars all the time, there's so much of that story doesn't make sense. It's fake. So the reason I say the Ukraine story is significant is Alexandra Chalupa is the person who started the Trump-Russia narrative. She is a significant force behind it. In fact, the investigative reporter Michael Isikoff, from now at Yahoo, but he's covered a lot of major stories. He called, if you just Google Yahoo 2016 election Alexandra Chalupa, you'll find an article he wrote calling Alexandra Chalupa, who we're going to make a household name. Alexandra Chalupa, you're on notice. You're going to be a household name. He called her one of the most significant people in the 2016 election back in October. That's what he said. She was working closely with Isikoff. Her sister, Andrea Chalupa, said in 2 separate tweets that Alexandra Chalupa was behind the Trump-Russia narrative. She was the main researcher for the DNC. Very important. You got to remember, Alexandra Chalupa, she worked in the Clinton White House. She goes back to the Bill Clinton era. She's been a DNC operative since 2004. She was working directly for the DNC. And as we're going to point out, the DNC was using Chalupa. This is what they're doing. So let me, Reuters, when they say, for instance, there's no connection to Clinton, that's because Chalupa's a cutout. In other words, I believe it's very clear, and I've had a source directly tell me who's been involved in this, that they believe this as well. The DNC wants to keep one level of separation from Chalupa. And Chalupa was funding operations through a guy named Brett Kimberlin. Brett Kimberlin's a convicted serial bomber who I've written about for years as well. And again, no conjecture on this. She's worked directly with this guy. So what the DNC's doing, David, this is Watergate stuff.
Yes.
The cover-up is worse than the crime.
And that's what I've said from the very beginning, is when we look at what they did, going back to their manipulation against Bernie Sanders, what they do is they project their crimes onto Russia or onto Trump to cover up what they're actually doing. And that's what we're seeing right here. There's not any collusion. There's nothing there, in spite of all these special prosecutors, this long-time investigation, nothing showing collusion between Trump and Russia. But there's a lot of collusion that's going on between the DNC, and we all know how intricately connected the DNC was to Hillary Clinton. If it was investigated, I'm sure we would find those ties to come up, but they don't want to investigate the real collusion that was going on with a foreign government to manipulate our election.
Well, first off, there is paper. I'm going to be reporting today on my website, populist.tv. For the first time, this is an exclusive, and I'm really breaking some of it here, that Alexandra Chalupa, after the election, worked with convicted bomber Brett Kimberlin, who financed it, to bring a foreign national into the country. This was right after the election, where that foreign national met with members on Capitol Hill, and that's 100% confirmed. Chuck Ross confirmed to me he spoke to people on the Hill. I'd heard it from another source, with the intent of keeping Donald Trump from taking office. Now, David, you know how I roll. I don't like to do the conjecture thing.
That's right. You're very conservative about that. Yes,
I am. And that's one area where I'm very conservative. Marijuana legalization is an area where I'm not so conservative, but let's leave that aside.
You're conservative about the information that you present to people and your sources.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That so I'm just saying. I consider myself a conservatively, small government populist, right? So this is absolutely confirmed. They brought a foreign national over to meet with Democrats on the Hill, and they met with several of them and their staffers to try to keep Donald Trump from taking office. They hatched a plan that, and this is all going to come out, that would have had Barack Obama. That's
bombshell news. This is really bombshell news. I'm anxious to see this report. Yes, go ahead, break it down.
So I mean, this is going to sound so crazy that the mainstream media would accuse it of being a conspiracy theory on InfoWars, but it's 100% proven, and you'll see that this plays out, David. They hatched a plan where Obama would step down early. They would cancel the Electoral College. Now, you remember this time in November, And if anyone doesn't believe me, go look at Andrea Chalupa, Alexandra Chalupa's sister's Twitter feed from November 2016. She's all about stopping the Electoral College vote.
Oh, yeah.
They were going to have Obama step down early. This was the plan hatched by this foreign national.
Hang on. This is a dynamite bombshell information. We're going to be right back. Lee Stranahan.